Hello and welcome, heroes. Welcome back to Crit Academy. This is take 3 as my OBS has crashed twice now. We like to start off every episode on a high note, and today we're going to do that by giving away Fat Loot's compliments of Loresmith.
That's right. So thank you, Laura Smith. We have today the modular dungeon tile set, specifically though the Arcania set. Now, the Arcania digital tile set lets you make dark, shadowy dungeon maps rich with the fumes of arcane secrets. So maybe this time you had found the fallen order of the Order of Light, who had their secret artifacts hidden away. Or maybe on the other hand, maybe you found the Order of Darkness, who is still thriving and very rich with their powers and the fumes of arcane secrets.
Who's our winner?
Our winner today is... can't tell if it's an I or an L, but it'd be old. You're the winner.
Good enough, I guess. Congratulations, Eobold. If you enjoy the product, let Loresmith know. Maybe check out some of his other content. Leave him a review. If you didn't win, have no fear. Head on over to critacademy.com and subscribe for your chance to win. And apparently, Alicia's blaming me. Are you blaming me? Wasn't my fault. I don't think the cake is a lie.
Hello?
So yes, we love giving away loot. So on the main topic today, we're going to be discussing we're discussing world building factions, 5 tips from World Anvil. Organizations are extremely important in any setting. I believe anybody can attest to that. And in fact, I think in 5th edition they really did a good job of trying to give you a lot of core factions between like the Harpers and the Zentarum, and I can't think of.
I was going to say any of the guilds in Waterdeep are superb. Yeah. Honestly, they're all very different, and they all are expanded well upon, as long as you have, of course, the acquired materials for it. But right. It is there,
and it takes on forms.
Zentarum, Order of the Gauntlets,
Order of the Gauntlets,
Emerald Enclave, Lord's Alliance.
All those people have hands in something, and whether it's guilds, governments, companies, or religions, they're all the ones who kind of rule over everything that's going on in the world. They set things in motion, they do things, and more importantly, utterly memorable for your players and readers, and give character to the world building process. Now, however, though, creating a whole organization can sometimes feel a bit daunting, right? Well, in this episode, as we're covering this World Anvil article, we hope to avoid the generic factions and try to pick specific goals and give you kind of some techniques for that. But it's important to not overdo it. Make sure that the goal's still open enough that the people within can still have differing opinions. I think that's important because then that creates inner strife within the different factions.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, some world building factions with rituals. Rituals and traditions are an obvious element of organizations like religions and cults. Mm-hmm. However, you can find them in any other kind of organization too. For example, politicians in a Congress session will follow a specific protocol. And if they don't, it's normally because they're choosing to express something through their actions. You can think of rituals and traditions as the way your faction tries to reach its goal, but it's also a way for your faction to control how others see it. Kind of like public relations.
Yeah, that's very much it. I think that when it comes to world building factions and rituals, I think that those sorts of processes can become an important aspect of it. You know, like the coronation, or like I don't want to get too political, but when you have, you know, like our Congress and our House, you know, they have a process to making laws, and it has to go through these steps. That should be the same for your factions, whether it's selecting a king or a queen, or making somebody a knight, or give me some more ideas.
Yeah, or just even someone like a small governing official, like a mayor or something. Like there's always going to be some form of reason as to why they do these things as well. I would even say, right? Because they do this because it's a sign of progress throughout society, or something to like this person is now shown to have this kind of ownership of this power, or something along those lines.
Yeah. You have anything to say about that?
Or maybe it's safe. Maybe it's safer to do it this way, and that's why they do it. Who knows?
Yeah, Ian, do you have anything?
About top of my head, new.
Okay. The last thing I really want to touch on this detail that I think is really important is that those sorts of uh, kind of processes can become targets of the adventurers. Things
Yes.
that they can try to, like a chink in the armor, they can try to break those processes to push a decision one way or another. For instance, if you know that there's a succession in a political intrigue style campaign, and with this group or this faction, this person is sick and ill, and we know the succession is going to be this person. So, the team has to kind of um, become guardians or protectors or assassins of that person to help somebody else in succession, become part of
Mm-hmm.
put in control. And so that can become, I would say that focuses more towards the political intrigue aspects of D&D than anything
For sure.
else, because you're really trying to get into the nitty gritty of the rules and policies that kind of govern those things. So when you do build a faction, think about something that's regular. Every 4 years we in America we have an election. That's a process. So does your faction have something where every so often they change and vote on a new leader, or they change the council elders, or they something
They
select.
do trial by combat to select their leader.
Yes.
Something
See,
even crazier.
that'd be
Maybe
great for
it's
like a war like a orc tribe or something.
exactly. They do.
Yep.
Are you still fit to be our leader? Are you still the strongest? Well, what challengers are there?
Yeah.
I've defeated them all. All I see are bodies, so I must be still the strongest.
Do you let them hit the floor? That's funny. All right. What's the next tip there, Ian?
Our next tip for this is rivals and allies. Relations between organizations are an essential part of world-building factions. Make a list of all known organizations in your world and decide what kind of relationship they get with the factions you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
These decisions will have an important impact on the world. For example, what does it mean if two rival factions are suddenly allied against a third faction? Think about power vacuums too. They're a great source of conflict between competing factions. If you have many factions in your world, relationships between them could become difficult to remember. But, well, World Anvil can help you out with this. Use the Diplomacy web feature to have a visual and interactive representation of your factions. Great way to check diplomacy in your world building.
Yeah. So this sounds very complex, but it's really not. Every single faction in any video game story has some sort of relationship to another one. When I played 13th Age,
Mhm.
I was just told that I just seen that my wife told me the YouTube isn't working. So hopefully those people know to go to either Facebook or Twitch.
Yeah.
It looks like both of
Yeah.
those are working. I don't know why the YouTube didn't reconnect, and I don't know how to fix that. So, when it comes to this, a real simple way to do, when I was playing 13th Age, that you basically would have like one positive or two positive connections to a specific faction and one negative or neutral. And so what they're talking about in World Anvil is there's this basically like a grid system, kind of like you ever do those, connect the lines to the mating object in like school? I can't think of a good example.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you basically draw out boxes and then draw lines to the different factions. Say, okay, this faction and this faction, they have maybe a positive relationship, or maybe it's strained, or maybe they're at war. And because they're at war, this faction 2 is now allies with faction 3. Why did faction 3 join faction 2? Because they're enemies of faction 5, and faction 5 is now allied with faction 1, and basically you create kind of a brainstorm line chart that connects them with just simple descriptions of how they all relate to each other, because very few factions of interest are kind of self-isolated, right? They do exist. When I watched the the anime. What's the prequel to Maggie? The Sinbad Adventures of Sinbad. There's
think
one.
so, yeah.
There's
Yep.
one group faction who basically lives in a mountain, and they bordered off their. They built a wall, and they bordered off their entire culture and stopped trade and everything. So that would be kind of an example of a faction that's kind of not connected to others. But how does that, affect them? Well, because they don't have outside trade, when somebody does show up, it's a big deal. Or their
Right.
beliefs are really constrained and limited because they don't see other people. Likewise, if you go to faction, what was it, 3, who's now going to war with faction 5 because faction 5 is allied with faction 1, you can kind of easily create, okay, these two are at war. Why? Well, because they have this relationship, there's no trade going to this other location, which is starving people. So now they're pissed that they're starving. Or trade route was something, I can't think of anything besides like a trade route. Do you guys have any examples?
I was gonna say, like, even like just two factions believing that, like, one of them is believing in a false god and stuff like that. I mean, that's a huge one in fantasy, honestly, where they're like, we don't believe that this had happened, therefore we're going to crusade against you, honestly. And it's just like, oh, okay, I guess this is how it is. And then they will fight until, well, eventually one gives up,
Or they're all exterminated.
or they're all exterminated. Turns out that god was
Actually-
real, and he just points his finger down and just craters everything.
Actually, the stuff that jumped out to me was thinking about a power vacuum too.
That's a good one.
And the very first thing I thought about, and I won't mention what the faction is due to spoilers, mind you, but in the book series, the Dresden Files,
It's quite
There
a
was-
bit in there, yeah.
they make it very clear that there's a lot of factions in the world. They don't tell you all of them per se. But there was one in particular that was a very large one, and it had a lot of like far-reaching worldwide influence. And during one of the book, the main character went, "I am destroying this faction," says, "Screw them."
Mm-hmm.
And he did outright destroy every single member of that faction. And then the next book when time came by, all I was like, don't you realize what you've done when you destroyed them? Yeah, they were evil, but they had their hands in all of this. They're now gone. Do you have any idea how many more factions reared their head and caused more destruction than before? Because these guys kept all of these other factions in check?
Yeah, Bloodscore in the comments on Twitch says each faction should have a shared ideal and opposing ideal, then choose an ally, enemy, neutral, separate from those shared ideals. That really is on point, and I think you make a good point on vacuums because when somebody who's in control of something suddenly disappears, whatever they were controlling is now in chaos. For instance, a good example would be like you have a underground rogue Robin Hood-esque group, right? They rob from the rich and give to the poor. Well, if the evil king who hates these guys decides I'm gonna wipe them out and does so, well, now the people that were getting the food no longer have it, so now they're starving. Does that lead to a revolt because now they're not able to survive? There's always kind of those chain events when you have kind of rivals and allies and everyone is kind of got their good relations between each other, or not so good relations, I suppose.
Right.
But even bad people have influence over the good in the world, I suppose.
Right.
Actually, I just thought about randomly too, where there was one issue of years back of the Punisher who was going to kill the Kingpin in Marvel Comics, but then he realized very quickly this might actually be a really bad idea. I mean, yeah, the guy has his hand in a lot of organized crime, not just in New York City, but far-reaching throughout the world. But as word was getting out that he was taking down the Kingpin, suddenly it caused escalation around the state of New York. It became more chaotic because there were other factions getting ready to move in and take over. Violence was escalating. It's like, as much as I hate this guy, he does establish an element of control, and things would be way worse without him here. But I end up sparing him
Another
for that
really
very
good
reason.
example is in the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. There's
Yeah.
one called the Sakage, who quite literally controls like almost every figurehead in the entire world, because they're either going to assassinate them or protect them from themselves, essentially, because it's whoever is the highest bidder.
Right.
So if someone pays enough money to, just kill this guy who could be this figurehead, well, that sucks for that guy.
Right.
But chances are they already have stuff in place, so it doesn't usually go too badly. Especially since the Sakage is kind of part of it, so they kind of always make sure stuff is in place to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
But one of their leaders had died, and next thing you know, the whole Sakage doesn't exist anymore. So now you have these extremely absurdly strong master level assassins who can use magic, and you're just like, what do we do with these guys? And they're all like, we're just gonna do what we want, and that's kind of like
That's exactly
kept
what
everyone
happens.
in check. So
That's a good.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
really
a-
good example. It's a great series, by
Yeah.
the way. If you haven't checked it out.
very great
So-
series. It's one of my favorite.
So the next thing we kind of want to talk about is giving your factions personality. Personality isn't just for characters. You know,
True.
in order to really give it personality, bring it alive, for a faction, this is mostly how their members might look or sound, or maybe the way they dress, which social class they come from, what kind of training they have, and their general outlooks on life. So, for instance, I think the Dungeons and Dragons factions are a good example of this. The Harpers are a group of people who are all about getting information, right, and having this complex network of spies, basically. So when you think of that, what comes to your mind? He took a bite right at that time. Right? Anyways, so for instance, you expect like the roguish type character to potentially be a Harper, right? You expect every Harper you meet to be that kind of, hey, psst, hey, psst, come here. I got some information I have to share with you. What?
Come here.
Oh, come here. Or the old hey, I got some news for you. It'll cost you though. But they're all about that sort of I don't want to say scoundrelly, but roguish kind of feel. But then you got the Lord
Yeah.
Alliance, which are all about doing the good holy fight, and they're pretty much like a generic paladin persona.
I was gonna say, you always imagine them in armor and
Mm-hmm.
kind of patrolling the streets.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's Orb the Gauntlet.
Oh, whatever. What did I call it?
Lord's Alliance.
Oh, whatever. That I meant the one that they always walk around in suit like suit of armor people.
Yeah, I was always imagining the roguish type as well, with like just kind of like heftier, like concealing
Mhm.
clothing, where they're always like, it looks like they're just wearing layers upon layers of clothes, and you're like, what do they have under there? And you never want to know.
Yeah.
It's like the
Oh.
wizard when they ask for a skull from the rogue. It's like, I need a skull. Can you provide me one? He's like, yeah, it's gonna cost you. So you have some? And he opens his jacket and there's like 6. He's like, you don't ask? And that we're good. He's like, I'll take that one.
Bloodscore in the comments makes a pretty interesting point. He says, real world faction example would be like sects of, Christianity. They all kind of believe the same idea, but their individual interpretations cause a little bit of different viewpoints on how something should be done. In the article, the World Anvil article, they may actually mention one of my favorite shows really does this really, really well, and that would be The Last Airbender.
Yes.
There are four main factions. The nations can easily be identified what type of character somebody is and where they belong based on the way they look and the way they act. For instance, the Fire Nation is very ambitious and hot-headed. I just got that. That's funny. Always striving for innovation. That's and that's why they've gotten the most advanced technology and why they've continued to grow beyond their borders. Meanwhile, you got the Earth
Yeah.
Kingdom that they hit problems head on, you know, all about the earth bending and everything, and they're known for their persistence and endurance. It's no wonder why they've been fending off the Fire Nation for so long. They're like rocks. They refuse to give in. And then of course you got the water tribe the water tribes that adapt to the new situations and focus on strong community bonds. And which is why traditions are important. And then, of course, the air nomads, what's left of them, are strong spiritual connection and believe in freedom and pacifism. Their, you know, spiritual personality, makes them kind of more relaxed and chill in most situations. And I think that I agree that that is a really great example of how a well fleshed out faction's identity can come through its characters. What do you guys think?
Do you want to go ahead?
Definitely having a unique personality for each one makes sense because each faction has its own intentions. Each one has a type of agents and qualities they look for inside agents. So that would make sense how each one would just develop distinct qualities as a result.
Right.
I never really thought about it too much, but the Dai Li in Ba Sing Se are totally like these like silent dudes. Also, can we just make like point this out real quick? Just because you're like an earthbender and you think like stout and with honor, like they made earthbending assassins. I just want to point that out real quick. That was like so cool, and it was really well done by the creators of Avatar. But
who doesn't love a little mind modification, eh?
It's fucking scary. But it is something that The Last Airbender does really well, is the fact that you can immediately tell and perceive that, yes, this guy is probably part of the Fire Nation because just the way he acts among everyone else. Like even when the gang went to the Fire Nation, you could tell that Sokka, even though they were under the same name, he very clearly stood out.
Yep.
And even his name stood out. And his trainer, who eventually trained him how to use the sword and whatnot, was very like, you should just name yourself Lee. There's a million Lees.
That joke makes it like 3 or 4 times through the series.
And it makes sense because I mean Lee was a common name, so it worked out. But it is really cool that that even though like Sokka, who is clearly from the Water Tribe, is trying to like
blend in,
right? And you can just tell that like he's not doing a great job, but he's trying, I guess.
Right. The last thing I want to kind of touch on this point is that you'll notice that these aren't complex details. Each one of these is only 2 lines long, and it's simple and to the point. And I think that it's easy to overthink how big a faction's description needs to be when it doesn't really need to be. You have a simple 1 or 2 lines of how they relate to each other, give some basic personality traits to that group of people, and make sure to remember those sorts of traits when you're describing somebody of that faction. Whether it's as simple as wearing what is a specific medallion, right? Or like an armband or something like that, a special set of rings, something that's unique to that sort of culture and faction group. I know all the factions in D&D have like their own sigils and stuff, so.
Like the Watchers in Highlander they all have the same tattoo on their wrist.
Yeah. Now there are some risks that come with these descriptions, right, Austin?
Yes. Because you do need to avoid character stereotypes. So it's critical to avoid these character stereotypes. If you've watched Avatar, you'll know that there are several characters from a single nation, but they all seem to have distinct personalities. I mean, you can look at Iroh or Zuko. They are very different types of firebenders, but they are even related, and they serve even like almost the same status of power, but they are very clearly different people with different ideals. And they still don't feel disconnected from their home nation. They are still both very clearly firebenders, and they're both very driven people, right? Just in different ways.
Well, one's driven to drink tea.
This means that the personality of a faction should be generic enough that it could be developed in many different directions. For example, a character from a community first faction, like the Water Tribe, could be a caretaker, a warrior that defends their village, or even have a xenophobic opinion. Everyone outside my community sucks. Use the faction as a foundation for the personalities of its members, but make sure to go beyond that.
Yeah.
And even in Avatar, there was a good few characters actually that had xenophobic opinions. Like even Sokka was, he thought lowly of women at first, not necessarily lowly, but he thought they weren't fit to do certain things.
It's
and he
their
got his
job
ass
to take
kicked.
care of the kids, right? And
Right,
that
and
comes
then
across a lot when he meets shit, what's the girl's name? The
Suki.
fans. Suki. When he meets
Suki!
Suki, who just whips his ass left and right, and he actually
Yeah.
builds up a respect and realizes his mentality and stuff was wrong.
I
And
think that was like episode 3. It's really early on.
and
They
that's
challenge
you
it
know-
immediately.
and that's something that we talk about avoiding character stereotypes, but that's also an opportunity for character evolution, right? Where they
Yes.
start off one way, maybe your character is from the Fire Nation, and just like Zuko, you start spending time with people that see the world differently, and you slowly begin to change. That happens to Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z too. He's clearly the evil bastard in the beginning. He literally blows up a planet the first time we see him, and but as he hangs out with
stoic.
people from other cultures, his perception begins to change. Sure, he's a dickhead now, but he's not wantonly just blowing up
Yeah,
planets
he's
all
not-
wantonly,
Right. Yeah.
wantonly.
He's not trying to kill everybody all the time.
Right. So there are, if you do pursue those sorts of faction personas, it can it can evolve a lot more over time, especially if they're in your party or they're NPCs that the characters interact with regularly. The reason I say this is I ran a adventure for our patrons that was all took place in shit, I can't remember it, but all the little red feathered soldiers were racist, xenophobic bastards. They hated them. Everything I got to say to my players, I basically picked on them for all their different racial features. And it came through as these guys are not only bad, they have no respect for anybody that's different than themselves. And so it showed that those groups of people and how they behave is consistent, but there were some that were less evil about it and just more afraid. So you got to see, okay, people from this area aren't all bad. Some people are just scared because of what others say. And so when you're building your factions, you can really leverage all that stuff together and make for an interesting, different cultures, even if everyone is human. And that's the thing I think people forget is that, a faction isn't just like a kingdom. It could be a specific like small little town or a culture.
And I'll admit, even though I got the main idea behind this tip, and I don't think it's a bad one, mind you, but at the same time, but I don't think necessarily stereotypes are inherently bad either, because I think a lot of them do exist for a reason. They come from somewhere. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think it kind of gives you a template to go off of, which you don't have to apply hardly completely all the way through, but it gives you a basis to start off of too.
I agree.
Yeah. So we do have, I believe, one more tip, right?
Yep, 2, but that's
Couple.
seeing.
Oh, is it 2? Oh,
Yep.
I thought it was 1.
The next one is use symbols for world-building factions. All factions want to be known in a certain way. That's where symbology comes in. Symbols have 2 goals: to create a sense of unity within the organization, but also to influence how others see them. Think of the feeling you want others to have when they see a faction symbol, and then pick an element related to the faction that carries this feeling. And of course, it's not just the logo for the faction. Other elements such as models and emblems are equally important. Like one of the most iconic ones from Game of Thrones is Winter's Coming, for example. And you want more symbols? Talk about guild tools, holy relics, world regalia.
Yeah, I'm reading, or I just finished another Brandon Sanderson's book called Elantris. And in it, they have these Fjordans, which are these very religious zealot type people. But one of the ranks is Yorn, and they are recognized a mile away because they wear bright red metal chess pieces, chess guards with big billowing capes. That is a symbol of who they are, what they represent in their faith or whatever you want to call it. It's a faith, but
Yep.
and it's very iconic in that world. Anybody that sees this guy walking around with his big red breastplate and his cape knows from a mile away that holy crap, that's a Yorn. Shit is about to get real because those people are only sent to. I mean, this guy was literally sent to the city to convert everybody. That was his job. That's like so. Having a symbol that represents something in your world gives it gives a lot of power to that particular faction, especially if it's one designed to instill fear, for instance.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely like holy relics are an easy one to go to for most things, or even just necklace, just like an insignia on like a shoulder pad or something. A telltale sign. If you think about how you want these like people to be recognized, are they bold people? Like then again, the bright red breastplate and the billowing cape will give them away, and
Right.
that means someone is there. But maybe like think for like an assassin's guild or something. Like they're obviously going to be a little more delicate with how they reveal themselves. So maybe like it's just a simple like
Tattoo.
triangle or something, or even a tattoo, like a certain like
I think it's Sword Art Online. The Laughing Coffin basically had a tattoo on the bottom of their wrist.
oh yeah, it was
that
like
they
on
would
like the wrist.
they
Yeah.
would like show it to people, but they kept
Mhm.
it hidden most of the time. But that's an example of a symbol because it has power and meaning. Right.
Yes, that's a very good one actually. I like that one a lot. That was a very because like you knew when Laughing Coffin was there, you were like, oh fuck, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
Like and these looked like just ordinary people most times too. Like they didn't look particularly scary or anything, but you knew when they pulled out like they rolled up their sleeve and the tattoo was there, you're like, oh, these guys are
Shit.
bad.
Blood Score in the comments makes a really good point. He says it basically means that you can give your players objects with the sigils and symbols drawn and inscribed on it and kind of know what that means, especially if it's a big deal, right? If you know that the Laughing Coffin symbol is a huge deal and that it means assassins are coming, if that shows up, your players are going to be looking at each other like, shit, who's next?
Exactly. Like so they're looking around at seeing where the next body's gonna fall because you're like, oh man, someone's gonna die pretty soon.
And all that is going to come from is knowing that this symbol represents dangerous people. And that's it.
Actually,
cool.
two things come to mind from those examples. Like one of them is in the Wheel of Time. One of the main characters, Rand, when he left the village, his father gave him his old sword when he went on his journey. And the book is very clear that the sword had a heron mark on it. Of course, you don't think anything of, but the character found out very quickly that that symbol is actually a symbol that is given out to blade masters.
Oh, so that's you actually bring up a great point.
So we're walking around actually in a few situations where like first about to happen, and some people see this and like, wait, this guy's like, nope, we're good, man. He's like, that's what that symbol means. Followed by, where did my dad get this? Followed by, why did my dad have this? Which makes you wonder a lot about his father, who you don't see too much. You're like, what is this guy's background and what did he do, kind of thing.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, like, this is something that could apply to the players too. In the show, we've talked about rewards that go beyond just gold. And what if joining a big popular mercenary band gives you clout? I'm thinking like the Mighty Nine or something like that, right? They're the Force Grey or something like that, where they have their own sigil. And if you walk into town wearing that sigil, either people instantly recognize, maybe not you, but understand what it means and treat the characters differently because they've acquired this sigil. Or Vox Machina, yeah. Oh, that's funny. I love it. So there's a lot you can do with these sigils and give these factions meaning and power, even if you use the stuff that already exists in D&D, like the Harpers and the Lord's Alliance and all that stuff. I got one player in my monthly games who's all about the Lord's Alliance, and he does everything he can, and he makes a big thing of it, and you can do that with your factions as well. So,
Yep.
or
like, actually, just I started like marathoning Hunter x Hunter over the weekend,
oh, what a great anime!
and
Very good.
one example of symbols was when during one of the trials, they had to fight some prisoners inside a tower, and one of the prisoners started bragging about how many kills he had. He threw off his cloak, had a Slayer tattoo on his back, saying, "Yep, that's right. I'm part of the Venom Troop, aka the Spider Clan." And the opponent's like, "You're not? What? Yeah, I am." Okay, first off, you're really part of the Spider Clan. That symbol on your back will have a number on it, not just be a tattoo. And you were bragging about your kill count. The guys in these factions don't give a crap about their kill count because they've killed so many people. They don't care.
That's a really good point.
Too.
There was
it's very
that could be a great quest hook. This assassins group, like the spider shows up, a guy wearing a sigil, and now the characters are assigned to deal with it, and turns out to be a fraud. And as you're about to deal the killing blow, a needle or a dart or something comes out from the trees, and the guy keels over before he's about to reveal some sort of secret or something, you know. I think that there's a lot to do with sigils and stuff, symbols having power of powerful factions and then being utilized. In the Brandon Sanderson's series, Stormlight Archives, there's a secret organization known as the Ghost Bloods. And when their sigil is used, people recognize it. At least people that are in the people that are in the know, right? And so it comes with clout, and one person actually uses it when she's not part of the Ghost Bloods, but when she does stumble across one of them, she says, "Oh, you're not with us, but you were perfectly okay, feeling comfortable using our sign, weren't you?" And she instantly is like, "Shit, how did he know that?" You know. So there's a lot of fun to be had in that sort of faction detail. So, anyways, let's world build. All in all, world-building factions are a crucial part of any story, both for the writers and the GMs in RPGs. But once you have these kind of 5 tips in mind, you'll have factions that not only well integrate into your world, but are also memorable personalities. Remember to connect your factions with the rest of the world. This will automatically make your world feel more alive. World Anvil has an organization template that you can actually use that can help, gives you like prompts and questions to get even deeper in your faction design. Please check that out. There should be a link in the show notes. They do amazing work, so make sure to take a look at that stuff. So I think that will do it for our main topic today. Did I miss? I don't think I missed anything.
Nope, that was everything. Yeah.
Other than our show melting down at the beginning. And it's not up on YouTube, so I'm going to have to figure that out, re-upload it. But before we move on to our Honor tips and tricks, we have this episode is brought to you by our generous sponsor, Kobold Press. Dark fantasy material for the world's first RPG. That's D&D. Within these dusty pages, uncover the secrets of the world. Indeed, of the branches of the multiverse. Collected here are entire lost volumes of esoteric truths, only for you in the Warlock Grimoire 2. Dark revelations and wondrous testimonials of dark fantasy, monsters, and magic locals lore of Midgard. The Warlock Grimoire 2 presents the content of issues 10 through 19 of the Warlock Zine, which is awesome, by the way. I love covering this stuff on a few episodes back. It was really a lot of good stuff in there. It also includes an entire issue's worth of new, never-before-seen lore and game elements for your game. So uncover the truths of the dark fantasy of Midgard campaign setting, or for the worlds of your own creation. I'm telling you what, this book, I could not believe how thick it was when it showed up at my desk.
Yes.
It showed up at my
That was
house. I'm like,
crazy.
damn! Lots of good stuff in there. Swing by if you are going to check it out. Please use one of our sponsorship links. It helps them know that we sent you there. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Now, moving on to our unearthed tips and tricks.
And now, what you've all been
First
waiting
up,
for, our Unearthed
bam.
Tips and Tricks segment, where we bring you new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
Hearing that definitely throws me off a little bit.
I know.
Alex, keep-
I can't figure it out, so maybe someday.
That's okay.
Yep. For our character concept, we have the Dark Sealed One. Once a loyal servant of the Black Wizard, you were sealed in a sarcophagus in stasis for safekeeping. While your master is now long dead, you live on. You're a terrifying, nightmarish creature from the ancient past. Powerful, cunning, ruthless, enough to slay even the strongest of monsters. After emerging from your long slumber, you are the very embodiment of death and destruction. Reminder that there are things even monsters fear. Once pledged to a life of service, with the original master gone, it is up to you where your loyalties now lie.
I love this character concept, you guys. What do you think?
It's always so
I like it.
fun. So
I-
it's such a good trope. This thing has been sealed away for a millennia. Oh God, it's free.
Like, my knee-jerk reaction is I could see this like being a new character if you need it in the campaign that's either at mid to high levels, or that said, you could easily use it for lower levels too, saying, okay, this thing was stored for so long, its power waned away, it's not quite what it used to be, but can build itself back up.
Yeah,
Time,
I'm
so-
totally envisioning like a construct, a Warforged or something in this.
Yeah.
Would fit this theme, or a tiefling, something scary in nature just
I
because
actually-
of its description.
I actually thought of my first thought was I don't know if you guys have played Fire Emblem Three Houses, but there's a guy who's in it called Nemesis, and he was a guy who was treated as a hero at one point, and he fought the Dragon Goddess, which was kind of an uncommon thing to happen in Fire Emblem, to be treated as a hero for this, because the Dragon Goddess was actually someone who was kind of like helping everybody. She was a figurative being who literally was trying to just save everybody. Well, eventually he killed her and
Oh,
used her
shit.
bones as weapons.
Damn.
And then he was like, also, I'm kind of like a bandit king, so I'm going to start just doing whatever. And then they sealed him away. And years upon years later, this organization came up and they freed him in hopes of making him take back everything and kind of reboot the world, because he was so powerful. Because he
Jeez.
fought a goddess.
That's
And
savage.
people were like, I don't know how to do that. And that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, he's just he has, like, you have no master, and like now you're just a thing of wanton destruction. Now that doesn't mean you have to play like that. You don't have
Right.
to like find the nearest civilian and be like, your head is clean off. Bye.
That's why I needed to have that last line.
Yeah.
It's up to
like,
you where
need
your
to-
loyalties now lie.
Like maybe the group of adventurers found you, and
Yeah.
now you're playing this character, and you're like, who awakens me? And there's like, we didn't know it was in here. We thought you were trapped. He's like, I was sleeping.
You interrupted my slumber, bitch.
Also, this would be really fun to play an Oathbreaker Paladin too.
Yeah.
I would love it. That'd be real fun.
Bloodscore
very
says
Having
something.
a really good dream. I was going to a great moment, and then you woke me up. You should all die because of that.
Bloodscore says it could be something seemingly not powerful or scary, only later to show its true form. I think this would be great for a barbarian build because
that'd be fun.
your normal self, but as soon as you trigger on the rage mechanic, your body shifts and alters and twists in some manner that just makes you terrifying. Your strength power goes up, and you just have no fucks left to give.
Yeah, it's time for that wonton destruction we were talking about.
Right. And so it kind of comes through kind of like that. Even the Hulk would be a similar example, right? Where
Yes.
in Bruce Banner form, he ain't really nothing, but as soon as he changes, you're like, damn. All right, I think that'll do it for our character concept, the Dark Sealed One. Our monster variant today is the Helgor. Monstrous fiends with the form similar to that of a drake without scales. Upon its head are attached menacingly large horns, perfect for goring a foe. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take the stat block of the brown bear, and you're going to give it some new features. First, Trembling Charge. If the Helgor moves at least 20 feet in a straight line towards an enemy, the target must succeed a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. If the target is prone, the Helgor can now make a bonus gore attack as part of its bonus action. The gore, it just does 2d6 plus 4 piercing damage. And then you're going to have Horn Toss. When a creature hits the Helgor with a melee attack, it can use its reaction to attempt to shove its attacker. I imagine it's just like throwing it like all those people that are fighting the bulls, right? That's totally not inspired by this at all. What do you guys think?
I love the things with gore in its name. It's so good. It brings so much just. It's just raw. It's
Gooiness.
just gonna bring pain. And I love it.
What do you think about that reaction?
This reaction's awesome.
That's something that's different. Being able to push him back or knock him prone, I think, is a nice little fun one. What about you, Ian?
I love it.
Okay, that's well said. Blood score. Describe it with entrails hanging from its horn, and it's all rotted too because it's from the last guy he gored.
That's awesome.
This sounds so much cooler than a brown bear.
Doesn't it?
All right, that'll do it for our monster variant, the Helgor. If you don't know, our Patreons every week get these fully fleshed out one-page monsters. It comes with backstory, it comes with lore, and some beautiful artwork that I make for them. So if you like this sort of thing, I make a new one every week. So head on over to patreon.com/critacademy and check out some of our tiers. See if there's something in there that tickles your dice.
Yeah. Now to the encounter of the podcast, Ghoulish Idols. Ghouls attacks against local villagers and merchants are a growing concern to the village elder. Anban Seyo, a noble, an older graying man with a long face, believes the ghouls' strange idols may shed light on the creature's aggressive behavior, not obsessive. A few sent back notice that they discovered one that was glowing. She hasn't been heard from or seen since. The characters must first locate the idols and then investigate ghouls' idols and record their findings, but doing so won't be an easy task. The idols can only be found deep in the ghoulish swamp nearby. Oh, a few scouts sent back notice. Gotcha. The characters must succeed on a DC 12 survival or nature check to locate each idol individually. A failed check means an encounter with ghouls, followed by locating the idol. Upon discovering the idols, a successful Arcana investigation check or use of Detect Magic spell reveals that some sort of necrotic power is emanating from the stones. During each investigation, the characters are attacked by a ghast.
Oof.
Yeah. Search and destroy mission, pretty much, what I gathered. So I kind of like this one because it involves a couple different things. First, the party has to go and search for these idols. It's based on your checks, which I try to do a lot of those sorts of things. But it's left open enough that you can expand upon it. Because you notice it doesn't say anything about why these idols are all of a sudden emanating this necrotic power.
Right.
It could be that just maybe they stored it and they just come loose. You knock them down, they disappear, you take your money and you leave. Or maybe somebody turned them on, right? Somebody
Mhm.
caused this problem. You can really I left this open ended compared to some of the other
I was
ones
gonna
because
say,
I feel
yeah,
like
it's very open ended.
it can give the DM a little bit more control over the normal kind of details that I write out. Specifically because there's so many different reasons of why these stones are emanating power. But it's
Could
pretty
just be the
straightforward
location.
other than that. So
This could easily be something that you could turn into like this is just like some weird one-off chance where like it's just a location, the stars aligned in some weird way, and somehow this happened.
yeah.
Or it could be something definitely much more further down the line where it's like, no, someone actually played a hand and tried to attack this village. Who was it? Who was here last?
Maybe that's it. Maybe the stars did align, lined up right with all three of the stones that turned them on.
So you gotta move the stones, maybe. It's
Maybe
like,
just
maybe
like
it should be.
you could do an intelligence check. Well, it turns out that these stones are in exact alignment at this exact moment with these stars. Barbarian comes over, picks one, throws it, and they all lose their power.
He's like, wait, destroying the moving thing was right answer? And you're just like, yeah, actually, for once. He's like, oh,
Can I still destroy it?
can I blow it up?
Oh, that's funny.
I like that one.
All
That's
right. Do you have anything, Ian?
It's a straightforward enough encounter with lots of things you can do with it. So yeah, looks good.
All right.
Yeah.
That'll do it for our encounter. The Ghoulish Idols. Our magic item is Vision Dust. This wondrous item is rare. Blessed by the power of fate, this sparkling crystalline sand grants glimpses into the future. The dust stored inside the flask or jar when found contains 1d4 plus 1 ounces of Vision Dust. The dust can be poured out onto a liquid surface as an action. You can pour 1 or more ounces to cast one of the following spells from it. Augury for 1 ounce, Divination for 3 ounces, and Foresight for 5 ounces. The spell consumes the dust during the casting. Woo!
That can be useful.
What do you guys think?
I like how there's still a requirement where you have to find a liquid surface. Now, typically that might not be an issue if you have any sort of spellcaster and maybe they cast Prestidigitation or something.
Right.
But, I mean, if you're in the middle of a desert, might be a little hard to use.
Well, so let's take a look at a couple different things. First of all, you have a chance of finding it with 1d4 plus 1, right? The final spell takes 5, so the DM would have to roll that nobody has used any of the dust. Now, the Augury is only like a second level spell. It gives you kind of some ideas of some might happen. You might have a good day, you might have a bad day, that sort of thing. Divination gives you a little more direct contact as a 4th level spell. But Foresight is a 9th level divination spell. You touch a willing creature and bestow a limited ability to see immediate future, and for the duration, 8 hours, the target can't be surprised, has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws. Additionally, other creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against the target for the duration. So this is
doesn't
huge.
have concentration.
No, it doesn't.
I just realized. Ooh.
So this is
That's such a-
something that I really struggled to put a rarity on it because it does contain a 9th level spell, but the 9th level spell has a duration and it isn't just outright blowing stuff up. And in addition to that,
Very utility heavy.
there's a roll that determines whether you can actually use it, because you notice there's no recharging. It doesn't come back. It's gone. So I really struggled with that, but I thought even if they happen to roll to find the item, happen to roll to find it with 5 charges, would they want to use it to cast Foresight, or would they want to save it for the multiple uses of Augury or Divination? It definitely leads to interesting concepts and idea as of consumable item instead of just a potion.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Divination, even on its own, is pretty good.
yeah,
I do like that a
It's
lot.
handy.
it's pretty good
It's
stuff.
not bad for 4th level. I do like that. This item. I could definitely see where you would struggle. I think very rare would still be a little too bad. If it had more charges, maybe I could see very rare. But 1d4, you got to get pretty lucky to get that Foresight.
Yeah.
Like that's either your DM is generous or your DM rolled and he was like, well, shit, here you go. So I like it.
Yep. All
I
right.
like it.
That'll do it for our magic item, Vision Dust.
All
Our
right. And now for our DM tip, laid traps. And this tip comes from the Beverage Tea, one of our patrons.
See this name?
So they're building traps into your dungeons and lairs that have a delay. When the PCs pass by, touch, or manipulate various objects in the room, they trigger the trap. The effect is delayed in a number of minutes, hours, or even days. This is a great way to catch characters by surprise, as they won't be expecting the trap in a location that they've already passed through safely. Or maybe illusions are created that they're used to confuse, divert, or otherwise disorient the characters in another direction. For the case, a delayed trap will catch them completely unawares.
This is awesome.
It really doesn't happen that often, does it?
I don't think I've
Usually
ever
traps are
done
just
it.
kinda. Usually traps are just kind of like kill them immediately.
That's not true. I used something like this once, where I had a mimic take on the form of a dead corpse, and of course, Sticky Fingers tried to loot the corpse and got stuck to it. But other than that, I've never really thought about traps that come on the way out. And if you think it happens a lot, a good example would be in the Indiana Jones flick, right? There's traps that don't trigger until he removes the idol, right? Then he's got a
Right.
big boulder chasing his ass. So why
Very
wouldn't
iconic
that?
scene.
Yeah, why wouldn't that happen to our adventurers where the trap isn't getting in, it's getting out with something? Like, they don't care who
Yeah.
comes in, but if you try to take the gold idol, everything's going to flip a switch and you're going to be shit out of luck. And the players, I as a player wouldn't think to check for traps on the way out, would you?
No.
No, we
Nope,
don't.
not
We already
usually.
we already walked through this hallway. Like,
Yeah, it is a very good like. Either your players are being extremely cautious, which I haven't met any, and Matt might be the closest one to being the most cautious, but
right.
I don't give him the breathing room to be cautious.
That's funny.
But yeah, it is something that you really don't think about. Yeah, delayed traps. I never, even ones for days. Like maybe, let's stick with the golden idol idea. You grab the golden idol, right? Nothing happens. You walk out. Nothing happens. You think it's really weird that somehow you stole this valuable object and nothing has happened yet. Until 3 days later, because it hasn't been put back yet, there's a curse that's on the idol. And the ward has finally expired because you removed it for too long. And thus, good luck. I don't know what happens from there. But something like that,
Dude,
like you never
yep.
really think about
That's
it.
so genius.
Because like, what if they need it for something, right? What if they have to show this idol that they are part of this temple or something? So maybe it's good for days.
That's awesome. I just watched, literally just before this, while I was eating dinner, watched an episode of Supernatural where some kid took something from a haunted house that happened to have an evil spirit attached to it. And it wasn't until the next
Yeah.
night that he actually had to deal with the repercussions of it. So I think this is a fabulous Dungeon Master tip, and I will
a very
certainly
good one.
be including this in my adventures moving forward. So
For sure.
Or the giant statues you saw at the front of the temple you didn't think much of. They activate on your way out because you have the items that temple was designed to keep in there.
oh
a
man,
good
that
idea,
would be
too.
awesome. I checked the statues. They're statues. They don't move. They don't blink. They don't do nothing. We're good, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, that's
You-
again. That's a
It'd be
good one.
awesome. I love it. All right, I think that'll do it for our Dungeon Master trip. Thank you, the Beverage Tea, for delayed traps. Our player tip of the podcast is Don't be a dick.
Be a dick.
That's pretty good. I'm gonna call that a win.
And today it is the role-playing a half-orc. Now, half-orcs combine the best qualities of humans and orcs, though some would argue that the good qualities of orcs are few and possibly hard to find. From their orc blood, half-orcs inherit great physical strength and endurance. They are fierce warriors, fleet of foot as they charge into battle. Their human blood makes half-orcs decisive and adaptable. For all their good qualities, many half-orcs exhibit characteristics that polite society finds rude or perhaps undesirable.
True.
Half-orcs have little patience for complicated rules of etiquette or procedure and find little value in hiding their true opinions in order to spare someone's feelings. They enjoy the simple pleasures of food and drink, boasting, singing, wrestling, drumming, and dancing, and they don't find much satisfaction in more refined or sophisticated arts, such as fine dining. They're prone to act without much deliberation, preferring to overcome obstacles as they arise rather than consider every possible outcome and make contingency plans. Who needs those?
Right?
These qualities lead some members of other races to consider them rude or even crass, but others find their brashness refreshing. Although possessed of many strengths, half-orcs frequently encounter prejudice in human communities. Thus, most half-orcs gravitate to careers involving physical labor or violence. For some, the life of an adventurer is either a natural extension of that trend or a way to throw off the weight of prejudice. The adventuring life also means finding a place in a group of allies and equals, a simple pleasure that is all too hard for many half-orcs to find in the world. Such as like a warriors guild or something, you'd probably find plethora of half-orcs there because why wouldn't a warriors guild want a half-orc? Of course they would want a half-orc.
Yep. I just saw Bloodscorer's comment. Scroll of Foresight. The target sees only the number 4 and everything. What the hell? I love this roleplay tip. This is directly from the D&D 4E Player's Handbook. This is something I feel like is missing from some of the newer content.
Yes.
Actual descriptions on how really to get the most out of them. I mean, they have some, but this is one of my favorites because I think the half-orc it has a stereotype with it, but we overlook that other part of the half-orc.
And I have a lot of fun playing into those stereotypes of half-orc characters, to be real here.
I know you do. You enjoy it a lot. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I've actually been researching a lot on like the older editions of D&D and like how, because in current 5th edition, we don't really have a whole lot of what the higher powers really do. They just kind of exist. And if you go back in like 2nd or 3rd edition, like you find out like what all of these things that had happened that haven't been like put into 5e yet. And so it really does help to kind of go back in time and find a little more information on these older editions because they do carry a lot of amazing information, like role-playing a half-orc.
Yeah, I think for better or worse, they kept 5th edition open-ended, but at the same time,
I agree.
But there's a lot of information that would have been really nice to have.
Yeah. And I think this is some good tips. I think that everyone gets a pretty good idea of the half-orc, but I mean, I didn't ever really think of a half-orc dancing or singing. Boasting, definitely. And so that
wrestling,
was those are the sorts of things that you get. But the one thing I think you could really lead into is the fact that they have an attitude towards people because they're so used to being treated like
poorly
orcs.
Yeah. And I think what you can like get away from them being an orc, just an orc, you can say like they have a lot more. They're just really passionate about what they do. And I think that's like a way you could role play that to give them that more half orc feeling instead of a full orc feeling.
Right. And I think, like I said, that's the part that I think we forget about. Sure, they're a little bit, not act without thinking sort of mentality. But there can be those occasional moments where their other half gets the better of them. And they do think. And I think in roleplay moments, those are the moments people will remember. The one moment where Thorg the Barbarian decided maybe it was a bad idea to sit on the rocket that was going to launch onto the back of a giant. But
it worked.
It did work. But anyways, I think that'll do it for our player tip of the podcast. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Role-playing a half-orc.
Yeah, do it. Love it.
But we still have one more gift to give away.
We do, and this gift is compliments of Jeff Stevens. Scourge of the Nightingale, Part 1, A Song of Love. A mass terrifies the region. Adventurers stumble into her scheme. The kidnapping of a famous performer known as Devin Artis. Their mission is to deliver a ransom and collect Devin. And today, our winner is David Barlow, 1963.
Woo!
Yeah, and if you didn't win, no problem. Head over to critacademy.com and subscribe for your chance to win. Why not? You might get free stuff.
Yeah,
Like free stuff.
It's all free.
we love giving away free loot. Blood scores. God, I love this guy. He says maybe if someone searches a Magic Academy for scrolls, they should find misspelled scrolls that don't act quite right. I mean, it only makes sense that some students didn't get 100% on every assignment. I love that.
You know, admittedly, that's fair.
All right. Please join us on our next episode. We're going to be discussing my dad's monster manual with James Introcaso. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If you don't know James,
Huge name.
Tabletop Babble, all kinds of successful content on DM's Guild, has written a plethora of content for Wizards of the Coast. I am super stoked. This whole monster manual, he basically showed pictures of monsters to his dad and then had his dad describe what they are. So it's like all the monsters from the manual, but they get rewritten. Like, I'm pretty sure a beholder is like itty bitty or something like the size of a bowling ball. It's really cool. So I'm excited to talk about that, as you can tell by my intonation. Right. One last thing I want to say, for those of you guys that are watching live or watching before we do our next game stream, which is on, what day is that? That is going to be Friday the 29th. On Friday the 29th at 7 p.m. right here on Facebook, YouTube, hopefully Twitch. We're going to be running Vigilantes and Villains. It is a playtest for a 5e superhero RPG based on the 5th edition rule set. So I'm really excited. I've put a lot of work into making sure the overlay and everything's pretty, and we're doing a world building through play-by-post in our Discord. So hopefully you guys will come and join us for that. As far as I can tell, there's not a lot of those. And so I'm really excited. We did a playtest, and it was really, really fun. So hopefully you'll come join us.
Good stuff.
And if you enjoy the show and want to support us, visit us at critacademy.com and follow us on all of our social media and leave us a review. We tend to be pretty active on our Facebook, on Crit Nation and Crit Academy, so feel free to give us a follow there because we do post some funny stuff every once in a while.
The Remembered Realms. Have you seen that yet?
I have.
You
yeah,
got
that was
this
pretty
big
good.
old map of Forgotten Realms, but some reason Wizards of the Coast only focuses on this one little sliver. It's called the Remembered
Yeah.
Realms. Well, I think that'll do it for our show today. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your co-host, Austin.
I'm your co-host, Ian. Thanks for listening.
I'm supposed to say something here, but I'm trying to find something and I can't. Keep your blades sharp and spells prepared, heroes.